This is definitely the most disgusting episode in the Walking Dead series. A man has trained zombies into a symphony orchestra, complete with violins, a pianist, and a drummer. The level of gore in the visuals is absolutely nauseating. Just recently, Daryl and the others set out for the Alliance's base. However, Isabel strongly opposes the originally planned route because she witnessed the catastrophe that befell Paris. So, the carriage had to detour to Angers. Fortunately, things went relatively smoothly after leaving the school, and they safely reached their destination. There was an Alliance contact here and he had a radio so he could keep in touch with the base. Before long, the carriage came to a halt. Daryl left his weapons with the nun to watch over the carriage and Laurent, while he and Isabel quietly sneaked into the house. Before the apocalypse, this place used to be a theater. As Isabel informed Daryl, the contact person was a musician. Soon, the conductor voluntarily emerged. Perhaps due to not having seen a living person for so long, the conductor was unusually excited, and his eyes lit up when he saw Daryl. Because the conductor could speak English, he was eager to show off to a living person. Daryl didn't want to chat with him, he just wanted to find the radio as quickly as possible. Subsequently, the conductor led the two of them into the basement, where, as expected, there was a device. Daryl rushed forward to fiddle with it, but no matter what he did, the radio wouldn't turn on, so Daryl had to turn to the conductor for help. To which the conductor replied bizarrely. It turned out that the conductor had dismantled the main components of the radio and used them for what he considered a more important purpose, a phonograph. As the music started playing, the conductor hurriedly led them out. Isabel and Daryl were then left in shock by what they saw. The conductor was completely insane. He had organized zombies into a symphony orchestra. He played on stage while the zombies played their instruments around him. However, the scene was so bizarre rather than disgusting, so don't watch this part of the original film. Guys, Daryl regretted that he had encountered such a madman after making a detour to get here. So, he quickly pulled Isabel away. Just as they stepped out, a zombie was about to attack the carriage. The nun hesitated for a long time and didn't dare to act. Daryl had to take the gun and shoot it down, but this gunshot attracted nearby zombies, and they had to leave quickly. Daryl decided to stick to the original plan and head straight to Paris. Soon they were outside the city, which looked like a dead city. However, Laurent seemed remarkably excited because he was born after the apocalypse and had never seen these magnificent buildings. He had no idea of Paris's former splendor. They walked along the streets, occasionally stopping, and quickly arrived at a cemetery where many famous individuals were buried. Laurent, a veritable fountain of knowledge, narrated their names and stories, becoming the guide to the graveyard for Daryl. Daryl, too, came to a stop at this point.
Jim Morrison.
Who's that?
He was an American rock star. He was in a band called The Doors.
Jim Morrison, an American, now resting in Paris, Laurent quipped randomly.
Not to fret, Monsieur Daryl. You will not die in Paris.
Just as they were preparing to continue their journey, a group of people suddenly appeared, blocking their path. Isabel hurriedly gave the code word, and it turned out that this person was the contact for the Paris base. Fallow's gaze then fixed on Laurent. Isabel nodded, and only then did Fallow smile. Fallow inquired about the whereabouts of Père Jean. Isabel replied that Père Jean had met with an accident and that Daryl had been escorting them all the way. Fallow finally relaxed and introduced himself and his team members to Daryl. Fallow then leads them to the base, which is full of survivors and supplies. They managed this place with great efficiency, even having a restaurant and a kitchen. What was more surprising was that they had a garden. From the terrace of the garden, you can see the whole of Paris. Daryl wanted to find a way back home. Fallow was quite enthusiastic and immediately introduced Daryl to an elderly man who served as the communicator here. However, their method of communication puzzled Daryl. It turned out they had been relying on the most primitive means of communication, carrier pigeons. Daryl felt disappointed, thinking that Isabel had deceived him. How could pigeons carry messages all the way to the United States? At this moment, Fallow suggested a solution. Paris had an underground black market where all kinds of goods were traded, but even in this post-apocalyptic world, information was a commodity, and they needed a form of currency to facilitate its exchange. Daryl tries to steal the currency, but Isabel stops him. She took it upon herself to handle the currency situation. At that moment, Laurent was surrounded by a group of children, each eager to present him with gifts. Clearly, they all knew the myths surrounding Laurent. Laurent raised his head and looked at the woman upstairs, then quickly ascended the stairs. Fallow explained that the woman had lost her husband a few days ago, refused to eat, and resisted all attempts at comfort. No one had been able to make her feel better. However, after Laurent and the woman exchanged a few words, miraculously, the woman began to open up and release her pent-up emotions. It was a sight for all to see, as if they all believed that there was still hope for this sick world. On the other side, Cadron had also arrived in Paris. Here, there was a military base with a significant number of armed personnel. Cadron was led into an office where he met Janet, the leader of this establishment. In hopeless times, people often tend to follow orders, and Janet had managed to exert control over most of the cities in France through force. Cadron was one of Janet's subordinates, and he had come to Paris to present himself for consideration. Moreover, Cadron had brought a gift, Daryl's self-introduction tape recorder. As it turned out, the American who had escaped on the ship was indeed Daryl. Subsequently, Cadron revealed that Daryl had killed his brother, and he had come seeking assistance to eliminate Daryl. Janet was pleased with this revelation, and Cadron was immediately recruited. The group then proceeded to a laboratory where some kind of zombie experiment was taking place. A doctor nearby was taking notes. However, in the very next second, the zombies began to twitch uncontrollably, and then the zombies broke free. The unrestrained zombies charged at the glass and then exploded. The entire process lasted for 18 seconds. It seemed that Janet was trying to achieve a terrifying result through this experiment, and even Cadron felt uneasy witnessing it. The next morning, Isabel and Daryl arrived at an apartment. This was Isabel's home before the disaster. The interior was in disarray, but familiar items triggered memories for Isabel. Isabel forcefully lifted the iron door of the closet and retrieved an iron box from inside. It turned out that Isabel wanted to fulfill promise. The box is full of possessions, and Isabel is looking for something to trade to get information about the ship for Daryl. Daryl remained silent and started to admire the view outside the window. Isabel informed Daryl that there were many bars on the street and numerous tourists passing by. She had expected the world to become a better place, but it had turned out to be so dire. After packing up their belongings, they prepared to leave. As soon as Daryl opened the front door, they were confronted by several zombies outside. Luckily, the apartment had a back door, and they hurriedly made their way through it. After traversing a staircase, they reached a courtyard where a child zombie blocked their path. Daryl was about to approach to deal with it when Isabel immediately stopped him. As it turned out, the girl's name was Amy, and before the apocalypse, she had been Isabel's neighbor. Isabel and her sister had encountered Amy while fleeing, but they had only told her to go back and find her parents, not taking her with them. And now, Amy has become what she is now. Amy reached out her hand but accidentally knocked over a nearby flower pot, which quickly attracted nearby zombies. In pursuit of their prey, the zombies began falling one after another from above, creating a gruesome mess of blood and flesh. The exit door was already entangled with vines, and Daryl had to speed up the clearing process. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. However, a more serious situation arose. Among the zombies were several sulfuric acid zombies with extremely corrosive properties. In a crucial moment, Daryl grabbed an iron rod and thrust it into the body of a zombie, then swiftly pushed the zombie toward the door. The high-concentration sulfuric acid corroded the vines, and the escape route finally opened, so they left that place. Later, Isabel handed her sister's photo to Laurent. Laurent felt joyous as it was his first time seeing his mother's appearance. Soon, the group arrived at the underground black market. Fallu, experienced in these matters, presented a welcome gift and weapons. The guards allowed them entry. It's an underground crypt where the remains of 6 million Black Death victims are kept. Fallu informed Daryl that when the United States was just founded, Europeans had already survived many apocalyptic events. He believed that this time, they would surely survive. Soon the group arrives deep underground, where there are red lights, wine and dancing. Watching the scene in front of him, Daryl began to question if he had come to the wrong place. Fallu reassured him not to worry. Such places were more likely to find all sorts of things. Laurent, who had not experienced much of the world, looked around curiously. A seductive host entertained the crowd, and a glamorous singer performed beautiful songs, creating an atmosphere of boundless joy. People here seem to have completely forgotten about the end times crisis. Soon, Faru tells them a message confirming that someone here knows the whereabouts of the ship. However, they wanted to see Isabel and the others' sincerity before sharing the information. Isabel had to take out the candy she was carrying. The man seemed satisfied, as candies were a rarity in the post-apocalyptic world. As he was about to take them, Daryl intervened, understanding the principle of money first, then goods. However, the man explained that he knew who could help, and these goods were like a letter of introduction. After paying the money up front, he would take Isabel to meet the person. Daryl didn't answer, and then he looked around. The man on the side of the room made him wary. His instincts told him that he needed to leave this place as soon as possible. However, the man was not willing to let Daryl go, and they got into a physical altercation. Just at that moment, another man appeared, and he was none other than Isabel's pre-apocalypse boyfriend, Quinn. Seeing Quinn, the man became submissive. Quinn had set a rule in the bar: no weapons allowed. Apparently, the man had violated this rule, so Quinn taught the man a lesson and promptly ejected him from the bar. Clearly, Quinn was the leader of this underground bar. At the center of the dance floor, Laurent was drawn to the music of the singer. During a break, he approached her and struck up a conversation. They chatted for a while, and the singer, full of enthusiasm, offered Laurent a necklace as a memento. Everyone who met Laurent seemed enthusiastic, and then he walked over to Isabel. Quinn greeted Laurent, assuming he was Isabel's child. Isabel denied it and told Quinn it was Lily's baby. Quinn just smiled. The nun noticed the situation and quickly pulled Laurent away from there. In no time, they arrived in the basement, which was filled with a collection of artifacts and treasures. Now Quinn's private collection. Quinn inquired about Isabel and Lily's recent experiences. Isabel says she became a nun. Lily's dead. It turned out that Quinn was Lauren's father. Isabel was shocked but not angry. Quinn wants to get back together with Isabel and tells her about the good things they used to do. However, Isabel expressed her current focus on helping her friend find their way home. Daryl, not wanting to obtain information through such means, grabbed Isabel and left the place. After they left, Cadron and his group arrived at the bar. It was the first time someone had come armed, and the bar fell silent instantly. Quinn stated that he has reached an agreement with Janet, and the bar is off limits for them. Cadron says he's just looking for someone. Both sides had a common enemy, so they quickly reached an agreement. On the other side, as soon as Daryl returned to the camp, he wanted to leave. His mission was complete, and he believed he needed to find his own way home. Isabel tried to persuade Daryl to stay, but she couldn't find a concrete reason. They don't see eye to eye. Daryl voiced many negative thoughts and even mentioned Quinn. Unbeknownst to them that Laurent overheard every word. Just then, a large group of armed militants stormed the camp. Cadron and his group had found them. As enemies crossed paths, their eyes filled with envy and resentment. Upon seeing Daryl, Cadron quickly chased after him. Daryl's fighting prowess was extraordinary, and despite Cadron's greater numbers, he was unable to gain the upper hand. They engaged in a swift, intense struggle. Daryl had regained his peak combat abilities, and Cadron was getting the short end of the stick, almost having his neck twisted by Daryl. At a crucial moment, Cadron's henchmen came to his rescue. Due to the overwhelming firepower of the opposition, Daryl had no choice but to flee. In the midst of the chaos indoors, where many survivors were injured, they could only escape. In the midst of the chaos, Laurent disappeared and Isabel had to search for him. Seeing that the commotion outside had subsided a bit, Daryl, who had been hiding nearby, made a run for it. To his surprise, the building had become dangerously unstable after being subjected to the recent barrage of gunfire.